There we go. Okay. Hi, everybody. Glad to see you guys. I'm glad that this is the first session because it's a small group and it's going to be a lot more informal. I hope you're as interested as I am to see how successful this initiative is going to be for us. This is about, of course, hiring 15-year-olds in the state of Missouri. And as I mentioned in my email, the advantage really is the fact that 15-year-olds typically are very enthusiastic about working. The benefit to you is that you're going to be able to fill some gaps in your schedule. You'll see that there's some availability for weekdays, certainly a lot more for the weekends and during school breaks and summer. It also gives you an opportunity to mold these individuals. They're young and impressionable, so you'll be able to teach them important workplace skills that they'll take with them, hopefully, through their career. And if you treat them well and they enjoy what they're doing, hopefully, this is the goal, is that they'll stay not only till 16, but maybe through high school, and if they go to school, college locally, maybe through that as well. So to consider this venture, we have to talk about the laws. Unfortunately, the 15-year-olds, they're under a lot more stricter child labor laws than 16 and 17-year-olds. So the child labor laws are regulated by both the Federal Department of Labor and, of course, our State Department of Labor. Because of the young age, anytime a company is employing 14 or 15-year-olds, the Department of Labor said, both of the states told me this, that they will do random audits, on-site audits in our cafes, and they'll examine time punches. They'll observe or interview the 15-year-olds while they're working. They'll ask to see their work certificates, and I'll get into that process in a minute. They'll ask to see the poster that you have to have posted in the back of house. And that's kind of just a typical one cafe type of audit. A full-scale audit for the entire company would be triggered by only one employee complaint. So obviously the goal is to treat everyone well, make sure that we're not making them do things they shouldn't be, etc., so we don't get any complaints, and trigger a full-scale audit for TBI. There are penalties and fines. That's what the government does. So we would have to be careful because every violation has its own fine. And of course, your responsibility, just like mine, is to follow all the regulations. So let's start with learning about their work availability. There are actually two time segments that the Department of Labor have carved out. So you have the day after Labor Day to May 31st, and that is what the Department of Labor defines as their school year. So they can work up to 6 days a week, up to 18 hours a week, and on school days, Monday through Friday, they can work after school until 6:55 p.m., up to 3 hours a day. And after school time is actually determined by the local public high school schedule, even if the employee is homeschooled. So I don't know about Branson, but here in Springfield, not all the high schools get out at the same time. So for instance, a Campbell, they would really need to know the high school end time for Kickapoo. And Sunshine probably would need to know it for Glendale, etc. And again, this is even for homeschooled. So if the employee lives around, I'm using Springfield again as an example, lives around Central, well, they would use the time Central ends to determine what after school is. We're also saying until 6:55 p.m. The law technically is 7 p.m., but our policy is going to be 6:55, just to give us that 5-minute leeway, because 7:01 p.m. will be a violation that is subject to penalty. Weekends, separate deal. They can work 8 hours a day in between 7:05 a.m. and 6:55 p.m. So that's what I meant earlier when I said their availability is certainly a lot more open then. Same thing with school breaks. During fall break, the long Christmas break, spring, or even individual professional development days, they can work 8 hours on those days, and they can work in between 7:05 and 6:55 on those days as well. If it's a spring break week and they're going to work all week, they can work up to 6 days to a maximum of 40 hours for the week. Of course, 6 times 8 is 48. So if they're working 8 hours a day, they can't work 6 days a week. You guys know that math, so I don't need to go any more into that. The second segment of the year is going to be summer. So the Department of Labor defines that as June 1 to Labor Day. And again, this is when the availability really opens up. You've got Sunday through Saturday, every day of the week between 7:05 a.m. and 8:55 p.m. so they can stay 2 hours later when it's summertime. Again, you've got the 8 hours a day, up to 6 days a week, maximum of 40 hours with no overtime. Next, let's talk about the duties that they can perform. And we'll go over the no-nos in just a second. And as you can see, these are primarily service duties. So they can do table service, and they can bus, and they can clean. They can make coffee pots, and they can make individual cold drinks. They can do the whole bubbler thing. They can cashier, they can take money. They can work in the bakery, but again, you have to be careful, just like our 16 and 17-year-olds, you have to be careful about the power-driven equipment. So they can't use that, of course. They could do food prep and actually use a knife, believe it or not. But again, a cut-resistant glove is required. That's our policy anyway, so that wouldn't be an issue for us. As far as on the service side, they can run the dish machine. So if they're doing dining room, they can do the dish with it. And they can clean. They can mop and sweep and vacuum. So the no-no list, they can't do baking of any kind. That even would include pan up or even placing raw product on or in trays and pans. They can't operate any type of oven, and unfortunately that includes Turbo Chef. They can't make individual espresso drinks. Back here I said that they could do coffee, and that's the pots. That's why I put that in parentheses. But making an individual espresso drink is a lot, I guess the opportunity for burn is a lot greater, is why they have carved that out. And they can't clean hot surfaces. And as you already know about the power-driven equipment, they can go inside the cooler or freezer, but they can't actually work inside there, such as to put the truck away. Obviously, they wouldn't be doing inventory, but they can't really spend any extended periods of time in the cooler or freezer. And they can't climb. They can't use a step stool or a ladder. So how are we going to find these guys? We're going to change all of our ad language. We're going to include 15-year-olds as our minimum hiring. So that will include our career postings on Talent Reef, and those postings actually go to the Panera website as well. And our ad sources will continue through Melinda to use our same ad sources, but she'll change that, hiring language to minimum of 15. And Melinda is also going to, love her, she's going to be contacting the high schools and local VOTECs about our hiring 15-year-olds, and hopefully the word will start really spreading. And then there are some common homeschool organizations, and she'll contact them as well. 15-year-olds will be eligible to be referred and refer others, so they're eligible for the employee referral program. I've updated that poster. And then Melinda also created some nice social media images that our employees could actually use and just quickly post to their Instagram or whatever they're using, else they're using these days. As far as the recruiting process goes, it's going to be very similar to what you do now with some nuances to that. I don't know if you've noticed already that the application has changed as far as the age question goes. So right now we're asking, are you under 18? And if the answer is no, then they move on to the next question. If the answer is yes, then this question pops up. If you're under 18, please state your age. So they actually put in whether they're 15, 16, or 17. You'll conduct the interview like normal, except for a 15-year-old, you're going to use this 15-year-old hiring guide. And the reason it's different is that you have to spend a little bit more time talking about their availability and kind of really honing in on that as far as when can they work, as far as their personal schedule, but also when can they work legally. And then also maybe some extra time talking about the duties, because they may have some expectations of things that they would like to do in the cafe, and we might not be able to accommodate that based upon what they're wanting to do. You'll make your hiring decision as normal. If no, you're going to release them in Talent Reef. If yes, you'll plan for your job offer. In making the job offer, it's going to be very similar to what you do now. You're going to offer them the job, explain what the pay rate is, you're going to arrange for a start date, and you'll mark them hired in Talent Reef. And then as a side note, the starting pay is going to be the minimum of your hiring range. So in Springfield, that's $11.65. I think it's maybe 12 in Branson. I can't remember off the top of my head. That will be their pay.
It's 12.
Okay. The two nuances that are different for the hiring process for 15-year-olds is the work certificates. So there are two, I'll show you them here. There is a school term certificate and a non-school term certificate, meaning summer. So we recommend, and so does the Department of Labor, this is what gave me the idea, is that they get both forms from their school and they complete the first section, Section A, and then they bring it to you and you complete Section B, which is this section here in the middle. It's just basically our company name and information about our location. You'll have to check the boxes in the middle. Those are the actual restrictions that they want to make sure you understand, and then you'll sign it and give it back to the employee. The employee takes it to their school, and Section C is completed by the issuing school official, whoever that is in their school. It could be the principal, it could be a counselor, or whatever. So all this has to happen before they start. And when they show up on that first day, they have to have both completed work certificates, A, B, and C completed, all three sections. So just like the IDs for the I-9 form, they need to bring both of these certificates to onboard on their first day. What you'll do with the certificates is you're going to scan and email a copy to me, so they can be a permanent part of their personnel file in Genesis, and then the original certificates will go into their cafe store file, their gray store file, and you'll keep those because they are subject to audit. So if an on-site auditor comes, then they'll probably ask to see those work certificates. And then of course, you'll complete the rest of onboarding like you do everybody else. I want to clarify a little bit something about the work certificates. The certificates are the student's responsibility. They're not your responsibility as the hiring manager. So it's their responsibility to go to whoever they go to in their school to get the forms. It's their responsibility to bring the forms to you for you to complete Section B, and then they take the forms back to their school and get Section C completed. So I guess the point of this slide is that you do not have the time and energy to be chasing down these forms. So we don't want you to get involved in the process by contacting their parents or contacting the employee or the school. That's their responsibility. Your responsibility is to complete Section B, keep the certificates in their store file after you send me a copy, and then you have to update the poster. That's what the last bullet is. So what is this poster? The Department of Labor, Missouri Department of Labor, also requires this to be posted in the back of house. And it's basically just a list of all the 15-year-old employees that you have on staff, and what that middle column is what their schedule is going to be for the school term. And if it's not summer yet, which of course it's not right now, you don't have to fill out that third column just yet. This will be an ongoing list, so if someone terminates, you just cross out their name. If you run out of spaces, I think this only has 10, then you put another sheet on top of this one, just staple it on top and just keep going. So this needs to be maintained, and it will be audited if an auditor does come on site and want to look around. As far as their ongoing employment, you'll need to make sure that the team lead knows that they're 15 and knows what duties to train them on. You'll need to make sure every manager knows who your 15-year-olds are. So whether you guys do group emails or group texts or whatever, if you hire one, I would send one out and just say, hey, everybody, I just hired Susie Q. She's 15 and it's going to start on Monday. That way, every manager, when they're the MIC, they will know that they'll need to monitor those clock in and clock outs to meet the regulations, and also to check on their duties to make sure that they're not overstepping there. As far as other aspects of their employment, really everything's the same. They're going to have evaluations at the same time as the other employees. They're held to the same standards and policies, write-ups, etc. When they attain age 16, we hope they stay. The nice thing is those hour and day and weekly restrictions are lifted. We keep the work certificates in their file. And then the duty restrictions are lifted. You guys know that, except for the power-driven equipment. So, you guys excited? Are you ready to hire?
Does the, sorry, I'm jumping with my questions.
Go ahead, jump in.
Does the freezer and cooler constitute power-driven equipment at 16?
No.
Okay, I was just checking. I just didn't know if those were one and the same or not.
No. No, that's fine for a 16-year-old to spend time in the cooler.
Okay, I was just more curious than anything, because obviously I don't think we've been very good about holding that standard.
No. 16-year-olds are fine to go in and out of the cooler and spend time in there if they need to for some reason.
Cool.
So here's how we're going to roll this out initially. Because of the liability involved in hiring 15-year-olds with the Department of Labor, we need to make sure every manager at your cafe is trained, and we want this to happen as soon as possible. I'm doing 4 of these sessions, 2 for each state, but I'm also recording this so other managers that can attend can watch the recording. So it'll be the GM's responsibility to make sure all of his or her managers have gone through the training. As soon as that happens, you guys will have permission to hire. And we're thinking 2 initially. I mean, I really don't know. We want to kind of keep an eye on the clock in and clock outs for a couple of weeks just to make sure that things are going smoothly. If the cafe, doesn't have any issues, then, we'll kind of lift that, I guess, rule of 2 and let you, hire more. As far as what we're going to provide for you, the tools, I'm going to send you a copy of this PowerPoint, and I'll send you a manager instruction sheet, which is basically everything that's in this PowerPoint on one sheet of paper. Just the hours, availability, the do's and don'ts as far as work duties. You'll have that on one instruction sheet. I'll send you the expedited interview guide. I'll send you the new employee referral poster, the social media images, and I'm going to send you the forms, the certificates, but they're not for use. I just want to send you what they look like so you can kind of be familiar with it, to know what information that they ask for. And then, of course, I'll send you that poster that you're going to have to post in the back of your house and keep updated.
Terry, that's probably something we need to have Shiloh include into the documents. We're keeping that list of all the documents the cafe should have on hand.
Right.
Because honestly, we were thinking about running it on the next celebration, running it with the celebration tools. That way everybody's got fresh copies of all of those.
Well, the nice thing for the Oklahoma cafes is they don't have a poster like this. It's just the state of Missouri.
Gotcha. So, yeah, we can have Dan, just tell Dan what cafes we want on which. He's really good about flexibility, but
Okay. Great. So, Lewis, Crystal, you guys have any questions?
I don't have any.
What are your thoughts? Are you excited about this? Are you kind of cautiously optimistic?
I'm kind of 50-50 on it right now. I can see it being good. I can also see it being kind of a pain, honestly, as well. But we're down for anything down here.
I know, and
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons was we really wanted to try to open up the labor pool as much as we can, and this is the only thing that we can really impact on our side. Crystal?
Yeah, I'm kind of excited.
Good. Well, and the
Yeah.
nice thing is that these employees won't be 15 forever.
Right.
So
Right.
if you can put up with some of these restrictions for a few months, I think it'll pay off. And again, the idea is for them to stay, not to quit at 16. We certainly want them to stay as long as possible.
And I do think they'll be a little bit more eager.
Yeah, well, and I've had 15-year-olds, so I know, and I know that my youngest definitely wanted to work at 15, and well, I guess they both did now that I think about it. And a lot of limitations on where you can actually go at the age of 15. So we're hoping that we can attract several. I mean, who doesn't want to work for Panera, right?
Right.
Well,
Okay.
both of those Gray and Lindsay kids were really good. So usually, seriously, they're both good employees. But both of those kids, just like
Yeah.
early, any kid that wants to work early is usually a pretty good employee.
Well, they're
I mean,
motivated,
right.
they want to have money, their own money for the first time, and maybe they're saving for a car or whatever. Um, so yeah, I think if the cafes can handle the temporary restrictions, then it'll be a good thing.
I feel like it's pretty low friction for the cafe because honestly, a blanket statement that's pretty easy is just keep them away from any equipment. I mean, that's about the gist of it. Just no equipment for just about anyone with the exception of coffee brewers. I mean, I know it's a little bit
Yeah.
more detailed than that, but essentially
Right.
that'll cover it. Do that and make sure that they get their clock ins right. I think it'll work out pretty good.
Yeah, I really am not too concerned about the duty aspect of it. I think the clock in and clock outs might be a little trickier, and
Yeah.
we'll have to certainly manage that with the employees themselves and make sure that they also have a responsibility of,
Right.
letting the MIC know, hey, it's, 6:55, I need to clock out now. Is that all right?
That was
So,
one of my questions on my list was, do we have the ability, this is probably a Craig question, do we have the ability to get the manager required swipe for early swipes to make sure they're not clocking in early?
oh, I don't know. Craig?
Because a lot of times, like getting them out of there is fine, but sometimes they'll come in, and I don't foresee a whole lot of kids being scheduled at 7 a.m., but it could happen, I suppose.
Well, it
And
could, especially on weekends or the summer. And I'll tell you, when we had Arkansas has very strict child labor laws, even for 16 and 17-year-olds. And we went through an audit with the state of Arkansas, and we got dinged a lot for 5:59 a.m. or getting out a minute or two after at the end. And it doesn't matter if it's, 1 minute or 10 minutes, it's a violation. So
well, that's kind of my thought is on those,
yeah,
because those early clock-ins, a lot of times they'll sneak in and you don't even see them pop in, and they'll just clock in, and they don't think anything of it.
sure.
Being 6:59 or whatever. So
Yeah.
that would be, and then so my next question in line with that is, what's the situation if we have to do a time clock adjustment? Like obviously we're not going to adjust time when they are working, even if it means that they're out of their requirements or whatever. But what if they forget to clock out or something and we do a manual adjustment? Does the Department of Labor look at that and say, oh, you guys adjusted this back to 7 on the dot?
When you adjust someone's time, is there a way to record the reason or anything in the system?
That's a Lewis and Crystal question. I haven't done it in so long, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Lewis, is that something?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't understand that neither.
Yeah, if it doesn't happen too often, I think that we would be okay. Now, the employee would need to know that, hey, you forgot to clock out yesterday, so I adjusted you to, 6:55 or whatever.
Hey, Carrie,
Yeah,
does ask a reason, like it'll say forgot to clock out, forgot to break out, forgot to clock in, forgot to break in on the adjustment when you enter their time. So it does ask.
oh, okay, great. Well, it probably
Okay.
does for that very reason, because adjusting an employee's time is a very tricky
Murky.
thing,
Yeah.
because it has to be done with their knowledge. And so a lot of times they're not right there. So you'd have to be able to go back to the reason and tell them why you did it.
Right.
That
That's
makes
good. Yeah, that was
sense.
a concern. Then my last one I had was so like you said, it's obviously the in-person's, it's the associate's job to find out what their school hours are. How am I supposed to phrase this? So how do we learn that? Like, is it their responsibility to say this is what time my school lets out, or do we need to have
No,
a list? Or
we need to be the ones that find out. So like for Springfield, it's a little trickier because it's got to be based upon their school. So what we can do is I guess we can provide that list. But honestly, when you think about it, if school gets out, let's say at 3:30, well, they're not
just
going to be
call
able
it
to
4,
work at 3:30 because that's physically impossible. They've got to get out of
right?
a horrendous parking lot with their car
Right.
and get to their work location. So I think we'll be okay with that, but we can certainly look up the Springfield schools.
Yeah.
And then of course
Carrie?
Branson just has one high school still, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we may have kids that work for us that come from like Hollister or Reed Springs or something, which has different times than
Okay.
Branson. So do we follow the Branson school time, since that's the area we're in?
Well, again, my thought here is, and Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong, but to reduce friction and mishaps, would it be easier to say 4 o'clock across the board, or whatever? If we look at it and say, all right, everybody's out at 3:30, so 4 works, or if everybody's out at 4, we say 4:30.
That would probably
And
be easier to do.
I
So
would think that would be the best thing to do. Then there's no
yeah,
issue.
yeah,
I would much rather
um,
just do a better safe than sorry number than try to determine, oh, well, this one's Reed Spring and this one's Hollister. I mean,
sure.
you know, and I don't foresee, like, we're not going to have 15-year-olds working or anything like that, but I'd
Yeah.
rather, just keep it as low friction as possible for everybody.
Well, let me look up those times to make sure nothing goes past 4. I mean, things are weird now with there's not
Yeah.
enough school bus drivers, so we're having to stagger start and end times. So I'll do that homework for you guys and let you know that 4 o'clock is
Cool.
going to work.
Yeah, I think honestly, high school might be like 4:15 in Springfield, because like we see kids getting home at like 5 o'clock off the bus right now.
Well, I've noticed that too. So, again, I think it's kind of just dependent upon the school. Let me do the homework. I'll look up,
Okay.
I'll also look up Branson and Hollister, and where else should I look?
Reed Spring.
That's
Reed
right,
Spring.
Reed Spring.
But I know Reed Spring because that's where my kid goes to school. They get out at 3:20.
Okay. Great.
And then Joplin would just be Joplin. And then for Springfield, I guess also make sure you look up Catholic, because that would apply to Sunshine for sure.
Yes.
You might want to look into Republican Willard for
Oh,
the north
yeah.
side as well. Willard is
Yeah.
like 2 something because the bus is by my house around 2:30, 2:45 for the high school.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll look those up for you guys and get back to you.
Cool.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. And even with all the questions, we ended in 30 minutes. So yay.
Go you.
We'll talk to you guys later.
See you.
Bye.